Greetings. This is MD Thornton83, once again bringing you another retro TV review. This time I'm going to be talking about the show known as Sonic SatAM. Well, actually, this is going to be sort of a double review in which I will go over Sonic SatAM and the comics that continued the story. Now, I've gone over this subject before in some of my earlier entries, but I thought I'd revisit this subject again for the sake of going over a few things regarding certain issues that have sprung up lately, as well as elaborating on some old problems that I noticed for the past several years. Now, to start with Sonic SatAM, this is a show that I remember quite fondly because this was one of my favorite TV series from the 1990s, and believe me, I used to watch the show on a regular basis back when I was 10 years old. The show aired on the ABC channel on September 18th, 1993, and ended on December 3rd, 1994. It ran for 2 seasons and 26 episodes were made. Now, 26 episodes is actually pretty short, but at least it's a little more than 13 episodes, because sadly, some shows I remember never lasted beyond 13 episodes at all, which is a shame. Moving on, Sonic SatAM, or Sonic the Hedgehog as it was officially called, was one of 2 different animated TV series based on the popular and ongoing video game franchise of the same name. The video game series from which these shows were based on was created by Sega, a well-respected video game company that gave us lots of other wonderful games. The show was created by DIC Entertainment, the same company that gave us shows like Inspector Gadget, Dennis the Menace, Dinosaurs, and Heathcliff and the Cadillac Cats, all which I remember quite well. Seriously, who doesn't like Sonic the Hedgehog? It is highly considered one of the most memorable video game series of all time, right next to franchises like Super Mario Bros., Zelda, Metroid, Castlevania, Final Fantasy, Street Fighter, and Mega Man. Not only is it a great video game series, but it also spawned many of its own TV series and has had several other spin-off products as well. One of them being the ongoing series of comics that have been running since 1993. The comics were made by Archie Comics. Thankfully, due to the comics' ongoing popularity, newer issues continue to be made to this day. It's been a full 20 years now since then, but I still remember reading the first few issues of the comics like it was only yesterday. And today, looking back at the older issues and comparing them to the new ones, I'd say that the drawing style has changed quite a bit since then, especially with the help of computers that make simple drawings really stand out. Anyway, back to the subject at hand. Sonic the Hedgehog is without a doubt one of Sega's most popular and successful video game franchises. For the past 20 years, the series has continued to grow strong, spawning not only video games, but a wide range of popular media. And as a longtime fan, I can only hope for the best for Sonic the Hedgehog in the years to come, especially in regards to the games. Continuing with the subject on Sonic SatAM, it was a great show, and in my honest opinion, it was one of the best of its time. Sadly, it was pretty short-lived, because like I said, only 26 episodes were ever produced. Thankfully, the comics continue the story of SatAM, but incorporates many characters and elements from the games as well. Now, I can't help but be biased when I talk about this show, but I have to say that I liked Sonic SatAM more than I liked Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, which came out in the same year, but was not exactly the same, and nor was it on par. Why is that, you ask? Well, for one reason, because there was more focus and consistency in the storytelling of SatAM, and it also had somewhat of a darker tone and feel to its atmosphere while remaining kid-friendly. That's not to say that the other show wasn't kid-friendly, but in my opinion, Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog seemed a bit sloppy and inconsistent, much like a particular movie that I reviewed earlier, which I would rather not mention again. Now, I know that some people have bashed SatAM for being somewhat cheesy, and some people have said that the show didn't age well, but I beg to differ, because Sonic SatAM was one of the few TV shows that got it right when adapting characters from a video game to a cartoon, which is more that can be said for other video game-based cartoons I know of. To start with, it fleshed out Sonic and Tails' personalities quite well, and it gave them appropriate voices. In my honest opinion, Jaleel White was the best choice for Sonic back in the day. While he often made some lame and cheesy puns, Jaleel's voice was quite fitting for the character's cocky, sarcastic, and arrogant personality. And not only that, but they also made some unique and original characters of their own, who have since become a part of the franchise. They made such memorable characters like Sally Acorn, Antoine de Coulet, Rotor the Walrus, Bunny Rabbit, and Dulcie the Dragon, who nowadays make most of their appearances in the comics. But I have to say, I'm glad that they're giving these characters an equal level of attention as well as to the characters who appear in the games, which is more that can be said for some of the other characters who appeared in Sonic SatAM. Now, I'm not going to flood this review by going over the whole series. A lot like in my review of Grimm's Fairy Tale Classics, I'm only going to take this time to talk about one particular episode, because there is something that's been bothering me that I want to get out of my system. The episode I will be discussing for this review is the one titled Cry of the Wolf. As all longtime Sonic fans should know by now, Cry of the Wolf was the episode that marked the debut appearance of Lupe and the Wolf Pack, a team of freedom fighters who quickly became allies to Sonic and the gang. The episode opens up in a canyon-type setting at night, which is being terrorized by a mechanical doomsday machine called the Test Pod, which the Wolfpack encounters in their territory, and this is where they were seen for the first time. Now, some of you might ask, what was the Wolfpack's purpose in the show? Well, here's where I give the sad news about these guys. The Wolfpack didn't really serve much purpose in the show at all. In fact, these guys were always pushed aside and left in the background, and even today in the comics, these characters are highly underrated and they are barely given any attention whatsoever. Or that is, they would be considered characters if only they were given any sort of importance or development. And as Sally said in this episode,
there was little information about the Wolfpack.
And sadly, that is true even today. But anyway, despite what little information there is regarding these characters, I've captured a very vague glimpse of each of their personalities. Though it's worth mentioning that in the episode Cry of the Wolf, only Lupe's name was given to the audience. And only she is given the most development, however superficial it might have been. The rest of the pack, however, are not given any lines of dialogue or development whatsoever, with the exception of Renard, who at least had a few lines of dialogue here and there.
You trespass on our land. Certainly, if that is all you wish. Lupe! SWAT bots are in the tunnels!
But it was only in the comics where their names were given. Now, some of you might ask, what is it about Lupe that I like so much? Well, to put it in a nutshell, I like everything about Lupe. She's gorgeous, attractive, beautiful, sexy, has a likable personality, and she has a wonderful voice too.
Greetings! I am Lupe, leader of the Wolfpack Freedom Fighters. Robotnik destroyed all physical traces of our culture. We returned to find our land being destroyed by the Test Pod.
She was voiced by Shari Belafonte. And I have to say, even though Lupe has had very few appearances over the years, she still has a special place in my heart to this day. And even though it's unlikely we'll ever see her in an animated TV series with the decline of quality cartoons out there today, I still believe that she and her team have a lot of potential to shine more as characters who people can relate to. Because if they could flesh out Sally, Antoine, Rotor, Bunny, and Dulcie, then there is no excuse why the same cannot be done with the Wolfpack. I mean, hell, they could even have their own comics for something. Aside from that, Shari Belafonte did an excellent job as Lupe. Her voice fit the character perfectly. Now, this episode first aired late in 1994, and that was when the show came to its untimely end. And sadly, Lupe and her team were introduced way too late in the series, which could explain the reason why they are so underrated and neglected. Somehow, I get the feeling that had they been introduced earlier, they might have received better treatment than the kind they're receiving today. As I remember, Lupe has only appeared in 2 episodes in the show, Cry of the Wolf and Doomsday Project. Again, she and her team served little importance, and Lupe herself didn't get to do much other than just getting captured along with Ari, and later being seen in the last few seconds of the final episode, where they escape to safety as Robotnik City goes up in smoke. Speaking of Ari, he has only appeared in this show, but he's had no other appearances outside of Sonic SatAM. In fact, we never saw him again after this show was cancelled. And that's a real shame, because I was hoping that they would make him a part of the Knothole Freedom Fighters since he lost his own team to Robotnik, who nowadays is referred to as Eggman. Because if you think about it, there could have been some room for him along with everybody else, but no! What did they do? They just completely discarded him and left him in the shadows like he never existed. And now, Ari is just a forgotten character, a distant memory of the past. And you know, that's just regretful.